Oh man, she did what? Why is the government always lying? That's not your fault. That was your mother's job. I know it sucks. It's hard, but it's fair. If we don't get our heads out of our collective asses, we're gonna be lost in the sauce. You knew he was sorry when you met him at DHS. Come on, baby girl. What's the solution? Look, I know I'm fucked up.
Welcome to the Angry Nerd Podcast. My name is Arshawn Wade, aka the Angry Nerd. Tonight's show is brought to you by some bad life choices and a few shattered dreams. The Angry Nerd Podcast is sponsored by the money that my wife gives me from my SSI check, some chick named Joni, and proceeds from listeners like you. If you want to be one of these viewers or listeners who contributes to the show and its production getting better each week, then I suggest you scurry on over to Cash App and hit $ The Angry Nerd. We greatly appreciate all the twos and fews that we get from the guys and girls who are out there in Facebook land listening, and Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. These are all the platforms that we broadcast on. For my listeners on Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube, when you hear me reference the chat, I'm talking to my good brothers and sisters on Facebook Live, because as I record this for you guys, I broadcast live from Facebook so that I can interact with my peeps out there. Jumping right into it tonight, we got some spicy hot topics tonight. First and foremost, my favorite dude to hate on, just because I think he needs to receive a little bit of that, is Tekashi 6ix9ine. He's in news again. Tekashi 6ix9ine is he's in the news because they've had to move him twice in 4 days. Apparently, some 12-year-old girl found out that she was living next door to Tekashi 6ix9ine. An individual who is probably one of the most highly visible people in the country at this time. Everybody knows Tekashi 6ix9ine. He is the colorful-haired rapper from New York who refers to himself as the King of New York. Quote, "I let my nuts hang." That's Tekashi 6ix9ine's favorite thing to say. And he was I won't say he was the leader of a gang in New York, but I will say that he was a very prominent member of the 9 Trey Bloods in New York, and he had a very successful rap career, and apparently he's still pretty successful at rapping because he's like breaking the internet every time he puts a song out. And I will be honest, I did listen only for journalistic reasons though, just so I can have an opinion about it. And even though he's a reputed snitch, and he's even making songs about being a rat, which I think is pretty commendable, you know, because a lot of these guys are, they're turning state's evidence and they're snitching and things like that, and they act as if they are not. And this young man is owning it. But he turned on his entire clique, the 9 Trey Bloods, and this is actually pretty impressive, but Tekashi 6ix9ine single-handedly gave these guys like 70 some odd years plus 2 life sentences due to his snitching or cooperating with authorities. And because of that, he received a reduced sentence of 2 years. And due to the coronavirus, he was released early after doing a year and a little bit of change, and he has to wear an ankle monitor. Well, he claims that he isn't in protective custody or anything like that, but they are keeping tabs on him because I think most of us, anybody who is, I don't know, 18 and older knows snitches get stitches, wind up in ditches, that kind of thing. Not saying that we do that, but we that has been said. And I think that that's what the police are afraid of, that there are people out there that still subscribe to that school of thought, and they think that something's going to happen to him. But anyways, they have moved this young man twice in 4 days. I just really wouldn't want to live like that. And let me tell you something about the Angry Nerd. If I was going to turn state's evidence and I was going to rat on people, I would like have them relocate me to Spain, Australia. You know what I mean? I try to get as far away from New York as I possibly could. This guy was in like Staten Island, something like that. I think it was Staten Island or Long Island, one of the islands over there. And some little girls like got him on her TikTok, like, oh snap, that's Tekashi 6ix9ine. And within 15 minutes, they said there were like 7 or 8 police vehicles, boom, stormed his house, packed him and his entourage or family, whoever was living with him, and moved them, relocated them. And then a similar situation happened days later. So he had to move twice in 4 days. And I will say this before I move on to the next topic. One of two things is going to happen if this young man doesn't change his ways, because he is still conducting himself as if he is a street guy, a real one, so to speak. Either somebody is going to catch him slipping and they're going to end his life, or he's going to end his own life. You know, that's my prediction. I think I'm leaning toward the latter, because the way he conducted himself, trying to act like he was super gangster and everything like that, he didn't want to be a rat. And he has to wake up every morning and brush those rainbow-colored teeth and look at himself right in the mirror. And I think that either somebody's going to catch up to him, or he's just going to finally go ahead and end his misery, because it has to be a horrible way to live. The speed limit here in Arkansas is getting ready to go up. Oh, now don't get too crazy about it. It's not like they're going to just blow it out of the box. So the speed limit will be raised from 70 to 75 miles per hour on rural interstates, and from 60 to 65 miles on urban interstates. Excuse me. But if you live in Arkansas, hear me out. These changes do not take effect until the actual sign changes. So although that they have passed the law and they have enacted this, and the highway department has declared that these are the new speed limits, they do not go into effect until the signs have changed. So don't think you're going to get out of a ticket by telling them, hey man, they passed a new law. That's not going to happen, homie. And in case you were wondering, it set Arkansans back $350,000 in tax money on this particular project. Moving right along, Target has saw fit to raise their minimum wage from anybody who's making under $15 an hour. Head on over to Target, because they have just made it their business to make sure that every employee that they have makes no less than $15 an hour. Oh, that's right, you heard it. They said, let's see what Target says. Apparently somebody is growing a conscience in their corporate headquarters, because Target has questioned what role corporations play in expanding economic opportunity to low-income families. And they said that this is they're taking what they can do in their power, and they're leading the charge on expanding the economic. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I bumbled my thoughts there for a second. But anyway, they're trying to level the playing field economically and provide more opportunities to low-income families. Got to talk about it. Rayshard Brooks, brother killed by the cops in Atlanta. Now, this is a topic that is so sketchy, because as a black person, whenever you can see the both sides of an argument, you get one of those nasty labels put on you, like Uncle Tom or something like that. So let me say this: the brother had fell asleep in his car. Somebody called the cops. He fell asleep in the drive-thru. Apparently, he had a few. He fell asleep. Somebody called the cops. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I would want this guy, to move out of my place too. And the cops come out there. I watched the video, and something that didn't sit well with me is the fact that the cop kind of like drug it out. It was like, okay, this guy's obviously inebriated. Administer the field sobriety test. Get the cuffs on. Let's get him in the drunk tank. Let him dry out 6-8 hours, and then send him on home. But he kind of drug it out, and and that's where I put a little bit of the responsibility for how this situation went and how it progressed to what ended up being this guy losing his life. I just felt like the officer should have been a little more assertive and he should have took a little bit more charge from the gate. You know what I mean? Because he was kind of soft in the hands with the whole situation. He was asking him, just too many questions. I felt like it was obvious to anybody that this man was inebriated. Serve and protect. Let's go ahead and take him to the drunk tank for 6 or 8 hours, whatever it is. It may be 12 hours, something like that. And then cut him loose. But they kind of drug it out, and the guy got excited, he got irritated. He tried to put the cuffs on him because the whole ordeal lasted, I don't know, like 20 something minutes. And he finally, what we see on Facebook and any of these other media outlets, what we're seeing are snippets. We're seeing something after it's been edited and put together. The entire ordeal was like 27 or 28 minutes. And I just felt like the interaction went on far too long, and that's kind of what contributed to this guy making the decision that he did. But he got into a scuffle with the cops. He took the stun gun away from one of them, and he runs off, and you can see him firing it backwards or whatever. And this is the thing that has people divided, because people are saying, there are those extremists who are saying, hey, they were justified in killing him because he shot a stun gun at the cops. There are those who would say, well, he was running away and he had a non-lethal weapon. I choose to look at it based on the laws that we have. I will tell you that as a United States citizen, if a person has beat you up, robbed you, and then they take off running, if you go get your gun and you shoot that person, well, now you're up for felony murder. That's just how that works. That's how that works. Once the person is fleeing from you, once the person turns away and they run away from you, now you have, because they no longer pose an imminent threat. They no longer pose an imminent threat, so you can't argue self-defense. And I'm talking about regular citizens. I'm not talking about these people who are supposed to be highly trained, and I'm not talking about people who are supposed to be officers of the law and public servants. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just you and me, regular people. This is the standard that we are held to. Somebody can beat me up, take my wallet, and run off, and if I go after them with lethal force, I have just committed murder. So let's not look at this as cop, citizen. Let's look at this as just the way the letter of the law is written. Once that guy took off running, it became murder. We're not justifying this guy fighting with the cops. We're not justifying this guy taking the stun gun, shooting the stun gun. We can't justify any of that. This is not the same situation as George Floyd. See, and I have to say that because what I don't want to have happen, the mainstream media are super geniuses when it comes to bastardizing a movement by piling some type of murky information on top of it. Like they want to lump this up with George Floyd, and this isn't the same situation as George Floyd. But the cops still acted inappropriately. They still didn't follow the letter of the law that even common citizens are held to. We can't go after a guy who takes off running after they've harmed us. So that's where I'm at with it. But what I don't want to see happen is I don't want us, the people who are in the movement, the people who have voices and who have platforms, and the people who are protesting, and the people who are standing firm in what we are standing for right now based on what happened with George Floyd. I don't want us picking up this guy and putting him on the same shoulders that we've put George Floyd on, because this is a different situation. But the cops are still in the wrong. Based on the law, I'm not giving you my opinion about it. I'm saying based on the way the law is written, these guys are in the wrong, and they should be prosecuted. They fired one guy already. They fired one guy, and the other one's on administrative leave. And I think that was the right move. And the police commissioner in Atlanta, he quit. He just resigned. I'm not even mad. I'm not mad. He's like, man, all this crazy stuff going on. Look, this is beyond me. I'm out. and he went on ahead and resigned. And I get it, because it's a touchy and it's a hairy situation, because you got people who really don't all the way understand the way that the law works. And you got people who really don't understand the way that the law is written. So you got people who are just over here emotionally saying, oh, they killed another brother. Yes, they did. And yes, they are in the wrong. But this is a very different situation than what happened with George Floyd. George Floyd was lynched. He was executed. He did everything right. He did everything that the extreme right says that we're supposed to do. He complied. He did what he was told to do, and he still lost his life. So this is a very different situation, and I don't want them to try to, throw dirt on the movement with this whole situation that's going on with Rayshard Brooks. And shout out to him and his family. I hope that they can find some peace, and I hope that they can find some sort of, recompense from the officers, from the police in Atlanta, because at the end of the day, somebody's dad, he was in the video, he was talking about getting home to his daughter. So I know he had a family, I know he had loved ones, and he lost his life. So shout out to them, and peace and blessings to them as well. So last hot topic, my boy Trump. My boy Trump is at it again, the shenanigans with this guy. It's like I try to show respect for the office that he holds, but man, President Trump makes it very difficult. And here's my disclaimer: the Angry Nerd is not a Trump supporter. It is not MAGA town over here by any means. But I do believe that on the world stage, we should present a united front. And I do think that it's very disrespectful the way that we handle the guy. But when I see things like this next shenanigan, I'm like, this is what we be talking about right here, Trump. This is the foolishness. So Donald Trump plans to make his first campaign rally on Juneteenth in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, for those of you who did not grow up in Tulsa, Oklahoma like I did, let me educate you the tiniest bit. Tulsa, Oklahoma is home to the nation's worst, most horrible act of racial violence. What was it? Was it in 1921 massacre? You can Google it and look it up. What was referred to as Black Wall Street. It was bombed and burned, and they killed. It was a bad situation. It was very terrible. It was a very horrible thing. And Juneteenth, Tulsa, Oklahoma, the land of that tragedy. It's like there's so many things wrong with him choosing Tulsa, Oklahoma for one, and on Juneteenth. Now, the things that I read said that they chose. Now, our good mayor in Tulsa tries to make it like, oh, well, it was Trump's idea to change the date. I beg to differ. I think the mayor let him know, Trump, we got some real thugs down here in Tulsa. They do not call my city Thug Town for no reason. There are some guys who will not stand for you coming down here on let me say this about Juneteenth, because what Trump said was, he said, I moved it to the 20th so that African Americans could celebrate their day. Let me tell you something. Juneteenth is a day that every American should celebrate. If you're for the right things, every American should celebrate Juneteenth. We celebrate the 4th of July. When this country supposedly won its independence, why do we not therefore want to acknowledge this country celebrating black people winning their independence? Because while they were winning their independence, our ancestors were still in the fields. Let's be mindful of that. Our ancestors were still picking cotton and tobacco, and they were up north working on the boats, painting houses. Let's be mindful of that. So Juneteenth is something that every American should celebrate. Because as a country, I'm not super patriotic, but I want to speak the way they speak. As a country, we were in a bad way. And that's a triumph to say that we were doing something so terrible collectively, and somehow or another, the good Lord saw fit to remove the mud from our eyes, and we moved out of that bad place mentally, that sunken place. So that's the first problem that I had with it, is the fact that he said, I want to let the African Americans celebrate their day. No, that's an American holiday, and it should be a federal holiday. That's proof positive that there is still some drama on the racial side of the game in Congress, at the federal level, because that's a holiday that we should all celebrate. Anyways, getting back to it, Trump decided to move the day. He moved it to the 20th to Saturday, and they're saying that it's so big they were going to have it at the BOK Center, which holds 20,000 people. But there's supposed to be ticket sales, upwards toward 1 million. So we'll see how that works out. But I did hear a little rumor that some of the Antifa folks were trolling him, and all those numbers aren't real. They were just getting up a bunch of the tickets so that the actual MAGA folks couldn't go out there and enjoy their leader. Now that ends our hot topic segment. And I'm going to get into the main topic, which is why I'm sure a lot of you have tuned in tonight. How to stop police brutality. People say, Arshad, I'm all ears. Tell us. Well, the title is a tad bit misleading. I'm not saying that I have it all figured out and I know how to end police brutality. But this is my idea. This is what I think. Decriminalization. That's how we end police brutality. Oftentimes, you don't see these brutalities happening at bank robberies. You don't see these brutalities happening at shootouts. You don't see these brutalities happening when there is a real crime being committed. When do you see these brutalities happening? At a traffic stop, at a stop and frisk. When someone calls the cops on you because you asked them to put their dog on a leash in the park. Trivial things. Once upon a time, at its inception, jail and prison and cops, these institutions were put forth to get rid of criminals. There are certain things that we can agree on as people, as intelligent men and women, that are wrong. Murder, rape, robbery. These are things that we can all agree on we don't want happening around us. And once upon a time, that's what prison was for. That's what jail was for. Rapers, robbers, murderers. These people. Now you will have any Tom, Dick, or Harry in prison for nothing, in jail for jaywalking. I've seen a man in jail for improper lane changing on a bicycle, skateboarding on the sidewalk, riding a bike on the sidewalk. I saw a video today where there were some kids walking on the sidewalk, and there were 3 or 4 of them walking down the street. Hey, you young men, stop right there. Get your IDs out. See, if the police weren't involved in these trivial things, in these petty things, that would alleviate a lot of the interactions that we normal, common people have with cops. That would limit the interactions. That's where it happens. That's where the wrong things take place at. Because, and we need to see about getting our officers better trained, better paid. You know how much a cop makes? Nothing. I make more than a cop. And that's not to say that I make a whole lot of money. These cops ride around. To my brain, I thought cops made a lot of money. And they do not. Most of these cops make about what your average factory workers make. And you think about that. You think about that for a second. Your average assembly line worker. What do they make? In this area, Arkansas, Oklahoma, what, $12, $14 an hour? That's what cops make. They're not making very much money. They're not very well trained. But if we stopped criminalizing these small petty things, the more laws that we have, the less freedom we get. The more laws, the less freedom. And as the more laws we put on the books, these are more opportunities for cops to interact with the people in a negative way. See, I'm walking around looking for people who are jaywalking, looking for people who are doing 10 miles over the speed limit. I'm walking around looking for shoplifters. See, that's how I end up on the conversation, capitalism breeds criminals. Because how do we wind up in a situation where someone has to shoplift? I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. I'm gonna stay on topic. It always leads to that for me, though. It's this wicked institution of money, because they have monetized law enforcement. They got to meet a certain quota of tickets. They got to meet a certain quota of arrests. That's the problem. The monetization of tickets, citations. You're going to get commendations and things of that nature for having so many arrests and for having so many tickets. It shouldn't be treated at, you got to understand, you are charged with serving and protecting the people. You do not treat locking those people up as a prize fighter treats his fight record. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. A good friend of mine, I say good friend of mine because we have a lot of the same views, and he's a person who has been good to me. Jim McDonald. I'm going to say your name because I care about you, and I like the way that you, as a Caucasian American man, express yourself without fear. I have seen this man express opinions in the interest of being right. Not being right like right and wrong, righteous. Because it makes sense that people shouldn't get killed by the police officers that their tax dollars pay. How many of these people killed have you seen committing a crime? Murder, rape, robbery. How many of those people have you seen? None. I haven't seen any of these situations. So it appears to me that these people who do these things are preying on the weak. They're preying on the same people that they're supposed to protect and serve. Well, I'll tell you, if Congress decided to decriminalize a lot of these petty things, jaywalking, congregating, loitering, speeding, if Congress decided to decriminalize all of these petty things, then the cops wouldn't feel like the everyday citizens that they've been charged with serving and protecting are the enemy. When cops approach you, they don't approach you in a friendly way most of the time. They approach you on guard. One hand on your car. If they pull you over, they put one hand on your car, the other hand on their gun. And that's how they approach you. Wait a minute. I'm supposed to be the person that you care about. You're supposed to take this job because you care about me and keeping me and the people in our community safe. That's what your job is supposed to be about. But when you approach me with your hand on your gun. And I'm just a regular guy who you've been charged with serving and protecting. And you are already primed up and ready to blow me away. Because you have your gun on your hand. You have your hand on your gun. I don't have a gun. Decriminalization. We have too many laws. We have gotten law crazy in this country. I've heard it referred to as a police state. That's who we are. That's who we are. These people, I remember being in the 4th grade reading the Diary of Anne Frank. And that's how I feel. I feel like the officers are Gestapo. And we have to hide. That's how I feel. We don't have officers of the law who serve and protect and who love. We don't have people policing from a place of love. Everyone is treated as a criminal. My 60-some-odd-year-old grandmother, who's never been in trouble a day in her life, let the cops get behind her. Oh, she'll start praying and everything, speaking in tongues. Oh, Lord, keep it in our shot. That's what'll happen. Sweet little old lady. Miss Marcy, very good friend of mine. I won't attempt to put a number on Miss Marcy's years. I would just say that she's a little old white woman, all gray-headed. And when I would go to the food pantry with her to get things for the center, let the cops get behind us. Oh dear. Little old white lady, ain't never been in trouble a day in her life. The cops get behind her. She says, oh dear, grabs the steering wheel 10 and 2, and she's shaking in her boots. I've witnessed it. And that's not how it should be. That isn't how it's supposed to be. They should see the cops and they should feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. They should see the cops and they should smile and wave, knowing that everything is going to be okay. But that's not what happens oftentimes. What happens? Law-abiding citizens are terrified of the cops. And it's because there are too many laws. There are just too many laws. And some of the laws, if you really get down and read some of the laws that are in your state, you will be floored by what laws are still on the books. There's still a law on the books in the state of Arkansas where I live, to where you can be put in jail for pronouncing the name of the state as Arkansas. That's on the... And I remember laughing at that when I read that. And then in retrospect, I was like, that's so petty. That's so very petty. And it gave me insight to the mindset of the people who are supposed to be in charge of making these laws, who are in charge of creating and implementing policies. They're just regular people, and they're prone to pettiness, vindictiveness, just like the rest of us. And we need to visit some of these laws, and we need to start going to our town hall meetings, and we need to start getting some of this stuff taken off of the books. We do have the power, and we do have the ability to change things. It takes solidarity. It takes enough of us being involved in these town hall meetings. It takes enough of us beating down the doors of our aldermen and our city councilmen and things of that nature. But we can effect some positive change. And the first thing is to abolish a lot of these unnecessary laws. Because the less laws that we have binding us, the more freedom we can experience. The less interactions that we can expect from the cops. So what does that mean, Arshawn? That means we need less cops out on the street. Well, less cops on the street. What about the bad guys? Well, the cops that aren't on the street now, harassing Joe Blow citizen, are now training. They are now receiving some ethnic diversity training. They are now getting some life skills and people skills training. These guys are doing something productive. Now they can study to become detectives and really start working to put away criminals. Maybe they go and bust down the next big Ponzi scheme. Bring down the real criminals. Because to me, the real criminals aren't out there looting when there's a protest. The real criminals are sitting up there on high. They're on the hill, living high off the hog, eating the fat of the land, while the rest of us starve. Those are the real criminals. The people who make these policies that benefit the rich and the wealthy. But they want to keep common people down. That's what it's about. And what we need to do as regular, everyday men and women, we need to take a hold of this system. That's not a call to violence. Not saying that if necessary, we should shy away from that. But no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we need to put our people in place. We need to get somebody who is not one of the good old boys. We need to get somebody up there. Trump's not the answer. I know a lot of people are in love with Donald Trump because, oh, he be talking like me, man. He says things that I like. You know, I understand where he's coming from. You don't. You don't. It's just simple and as plain as that. You don't. Donald Trump puts off the kind of energy that makes me think that, you know, like a poor person that hit the lottery and now he can afford to be around the rich people. He puts off that kind of energy to me, and it makes him seem like a commoner. And I see the draw for people of that ilk who love Donald Trump. Think that he's making America great. He's not. But what he is an elitist and an opportunist. If these folks who, you know, they're going to rally behind me because they think I talk their talk, okay. I don't care that the KKK, what do they call them, the Grand Wizard sends me a check. I'll take it. I'll let these guys follow me. He doesn't care about poor people. He cares about his people. And that's not white people. It's rich people. He's not the guy that we need up there. We need people, we need to start at the local level. We need to start putting mayors, governors, judges, prosecutors who are of the people, who are from the people. Most of our prosecutors, judges, and district attorneys and things, most of these people are not from our communities. So when we go stand before them with our problems that they are supposed to help adjudicate, we get no help. We get no understanding because they are not of our ilk. Why is it so difficult for people to understand that? I'm sure I do not know. But until we start putting people who look like us, who talk like us, people who understand where we come from, what sense does it make to have someone represent you who doesn't get you? What sense does it make to elect another Richie Poo as your senator, as your governor, as your mayor? What sense does that make? What problems do you see in your community? That's the person that you need. The person who sees the problems. Not the person who lives way out there wherever the rich people live in your city. Everybody has that place in their town or their city where all the Richie Poos live. If they live out there, those aren't the people that we want. There are some good men and women who live right here amongst us who are professional people who aren't like those folks out there. They're like us. They know what we need. These are the people that we need to seek out. These are the people that we need to put in a position to make, because here's the thing. Unless we're willing to just turn the entire judicial system, the entire congressional, everything, the Congress and everything on its head, we have to deal with the system that we have. So since we can't do that without having civil war and turning guns on one another, let's deal in the system that we are in. And let's start electing people, not people who talk well, not people who say they're going to do things for us. Let's get people who are from the people. Let's elect people, nominate people who have a track record of morality. Let's nominate people who have a track record of honesty. One's in the chat for anybody who knows an honest politician. That's a joke, right? That's a joke. For my listeners in Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube world, once again, when I reference the chat, I'm talking to my good brothers and sisters on Facebook Live, because while I record this for you guys, I'm also broadcasting live for them so that we can interact and do the thing that we do and have a little bit of fun with this thing. But I really want to know, who knows an honest politician? I've never met one. I've never seen one. Even at the low level. Every politician that I've ever been around, I felt greasy when I left their presence. Like, I felt like this guy will sell me a used car that breaks down on me halfway down the road. I always get that energy from those people. Well, we've come to that part of the show again, people, where I wrap things up, because I think I might be getting dirty looks from the next room. I can't see because I got the door closed and locked. But it's time for me to wrap things up. I encourage you. I urge you to get involved in local politics. Let's start finding out who these people are. We do have the ability to elect judges, prosecutors. These people have to run for the positions that they're in. A lot of us spend so much time in our daily grind, trying to pay bills and trying to make sure that our kids aren't out there running around crazy, that we neglect our responsibility to put the right people in place for us. People who are going to be about the people. People who are going to have the people's best interest at heart. We neglect that responsibility. This system has failed us not only because of the corruption, but because of our lack of participation. And I'm not real big on the whole voting thing as far as the president. I think that's all make-believe. But on a local level, I think that change is possible on the local level. But the first thing that we have to do is get people in there that we know. Get people in these positions that we can trust. Let's find these people. Let's find these people. Let's nominate these people. And let's get these people elected so that these people can start making laws and policies that benefit us. So that these people can get the officers the training that they desperately need. Let's work on decriminalizing petty things like jaywalking. Let's work toward decriminalizing things like loitering. Let's work toward decriminalizing these things so that the police don't have to interact with common everyday citizens. The police can spend their time being trained to catch criminals. A lot of these situations that I see, the person isn't a criminal until they wind up in the situation with the cop. Before the cop walked up on them and questioned them or pulled them over and questioned them, they were just a regular, average citizen. And then it turned into a death. And I think that we are partly responsible because we have to get a lot of these petty laws off the books. That way these cops can spend less time messing with us for nothing. They can spend more time out there getting the real monsters, the murderers, the rapers, the tax evaders. Go get them. The rich people who are breaking laws every day. That you guys give that cute nickname, white collar crime. Go get some of those guys with the laptops who are wiping out Granny's bank account. You can spend more time on cyber crimes if you guys spent less time messing with common, everyday, average citizens. But men, women, it's our responsibility to get the right people in place. Okay? My name is Arshawn Wade, the Angry Nerd, signing out. Peace.